The Empire had seen 1,000 species bend to its will. For centuries, they had conquered worlds, broken civilizations, and reshaped them into loyal servants. Every new discovery was the same: aliens who fought at first, then surrendered once they learned resistance was useless. The Empire believed there was no enemy left in the galaxy that could truly surprise them. But that was before they found Earth. The first contact came not with peace but with war. Imperial scouts entered the Sol system, expecting another weak planet, another easy victory. They saw Earth cities, its oceans, its vast land, and believed it would fall in weeks. They were wrong. When the first fleet arrived, the humans did not send diplomats or plead for mercy. They fought back. Not with desperation, but with fury. The skies over Earth burned as Imperial warships clashed with human defenses. The Empire expected panic, expected surrender, but instead they found soldiers who refused to run, civilians who refused to bow, and leaders who spoke only one promise: we do not yield. In the beginning, the Empire laughed. They thought humans were reckless, too emotional to be a real threat. Their commanders reported, they fight hard, but they will break soon. Days passed, then weeks, and still the humans did not break. Every street, every forest, every ruined city became a battlefield. The humans fought like it was not just a war, it was survival. Imperial officers started to whisper among themselves. Something about these creatures was different. They did not only fight to defend, they fought to end the enemy completely. Every soldier captured told the same story: we don't fight wars. We finish them. The Empire began to understand, but too late. One commander, Lord Valen, stood inside the great bridge of his battleship, watching the planet below. Reports came in: destroyed fleets, lost soldiers, human counterattacks. His hand tightened on the railing. They should have fallen by now. No species has ever lasted this long. An aide, pale and shaking, answered, "My lord, it is not only their armies. It is their spirit. They do not know how to stop." On Earth, the humans gathered in ruined streets, planning their next moves. They had lost millions, but their eyes burned with the same fire. A young soldier, dirt on his face and blood on his hands, told his squad, "They think we are like the others. They don't understand. We end wars. That's what we do." The words spread like fire. Across bunkers and bases, across fleets in orbit, the message grew. Humanity would not only fight back, they would strike until the Empire itself trembled. And tremble it did. The next offensive was not humans defending Earth. It was humans leaving Earth. Old ships, new war machines, anything that could fly, they launched them all. They carried rage and determination across the stars. The Empire, used to slow rebellions and easy victories, was stunned to see humans pushing forward, attacking instead of hiding. Lord Valen stared at the map of the galaxy, human strikes spreading like wildfire. They are spreading too fast. This is not defense anymore. This is extermination. In the darkness of space, a human fleet moved silently, preparing their next strike. Inside one of the ships, Commander Hayes stood with his crew. His voice was calm, but his eyes were sharp. The Empire thinks we are defending our home. They don't realize yet. We are coming for theirs. The crew nodded, no fear in their faces. They had seen cities burn, families die, and they had made a choice. No surrender. No retreat. Far away, on the Imperial capital world, whispers began. Senators and nobles spoke in secret halls. What if they cannot be stopped? What if these humans are different? Fear spread where arrogance once lived. The Empire had never faced a species that fought like this, species who did not see war as a game of survival, but as a final judgment. Still, the Empire prepared more fleets. Still, they told themselves victory was certain. But deep inside, even their most loyal commanders began to wonder if they had awakened something they should have left alone. In the void of space, stars burned cold and silent. Between them, humans and Imperials moved closer to the battle that would decide not just a war, but the future of the galaxy. The Empire had discovered humans, but they had not yet learned the truth. Because the truth was simple, terrifying, and final. Humans do not fight wars. They finish them. The human fleet moved like a storm. What began as scattered ships had grown into a united force. Old cargo freighters were turned into carriers, mining ships became war machines, and every surviving factory on Earth produced weapons day and night. Humanity was no longer waiting for the next attack, they were taking the war to the stars. Commander Hayes stood in the command deck of the Resolute, one of the first warships fully built during the invasion. Its hull was scarred, patched with metal from fallen cities, but its engines burned with determination. Around him, crews worked with calm focus. They were not trained soldiers. Many were miners, workers, and engineers. Yet in their eyes was something stronger than training, an unbreakable will. Target confirmed, the tactical officer said. Imperial supply hub, 4 light hours from here. Minimal defenses. Hayes gave a single nod. Then we strike. The fleet moved in silence, their ships like shadows across the void. When they emerged near the hub, the Imperials were unprepared. Human weapons, improvised but deadly, tore through defense platforms. The hub burned within hours. Crates of food, weapons, and fuel, everything the Empire stored, was gone. The humans left nothing behind. No survivors to report, no bases to rebuild. It was the first time the Empire felt what the humans meant when they said they finish wars. On the Imperial capital, Lord Valen studied the reports with a heavy expression. He had once believed this campaign would end quickly, but every message that arrived told a darker story. Another base lost. Another fleet destroyed. He turned to his advisors. They are not just resisting, he said, his voice cold. They are erasing us. An old noble laughed nervously. But my lord, they are still only one world. One world cannot fight an empire. Valen's eyes narrowed. One world is enough if it refuses to die. Across the stars, whispers spread among Imperial soldiers. They had been told humans were primitive, fragile creatures. Yet the more they fought them, the more they realized the truth. Humans did not care about odds. They did not care about numbers. They fought as if death itself was meaningless, as if every loss only made them stronger. One Imperial captain, captured after a failed battle, spat the words in rage. They are demons. They smile even as they bleed. The humans heard this and did not deny it. On a distant battlefield, Captain Mara Ellison led her ground forces against an Imperial garrison. Smoke covered the ruined city, and blaster fire lit the night. The Imperials fought with discipline, but Mara's soldiers pushed forward like a rising tide. Every street taken was held. Every enemy position was destroyed. When the last bunker fell, Mara stood over the wreckage and spoke into her comms. Report this back to command. Sector secured. No enemy left alive. Her soldiers looked at her, tired but burning with the same fire. One whispered, "We really don't stop, do we?" Mara answered quietly, "No. We finish it. Always." Back on the Resolute, Hayes received the reports of victory. He did not smile. He knew every step forward came with a cost. Thousands had died, and more would follow. But in his heart, he understood something the Empire never would. Humans did not count losses the way others did. For every fallen soldier, 10 more would rise. For every city burned, 1,000 voices would scream for vengeance. The war was no longer about survival. It was about ending the Empire. Inside the Imperial Senate, arguments filled the air. Some demanded peace. Others screamed for more fleets, more weapons. But none could agree on how to fight a species that refused to play by the rules of war. One senator stood and said, "We have fought countless civilizations, but these humans, they are not like the others. They will not kneel. They will not fade. If we do not crush them now, they will one day stand at our gates." But Lord Valen already knew it was too late. In the darkness of space, human fleets gathered for their next strike. They had taken the first step beyond Earth. Now they aimed at the heart of the Empire. Commander Hayes looked at the stars, his voice steady. They wanted a war. We will give them the end of one. The bridge crew remained silent, the weight of his words heavy in the air. No one doubted what was coming. Humanity would not stop. Humanity would not retreat. And far away, across countless systems, Imperial soldiers whispered in fear of a truth their leaders refused to admit. The humans had begun the war, but they would be the ones to finish it. The war had changed. At first, the Empire thought of humanity as a nuisance, a small rebellion that would burn out. But now, months had passed, and the humans were no longer fighting only on Earth. Their fleets appeared in systems the Empire once believed untouchable. Supply routes collapsed, outposts vanished, and Imperial commanders who once boasted of easy victories now begged for reinforcements. Commander Hayes stood over a star map aboard the Resolute. Red markers showed destroyed Imperial stations. Blue markers revealed human advances. Slowly, the map shifted in their favor. 3 more outposts down, his officer reported. And a shipyard crippled. Hayes gave a small nod. Good. But we cannot slow down. Every day they recover, every day they rebuild. We must strike harder. His crew agreed. They no longer thought of themselves as survivors, they were hunters. Across the galaxy, fear spread. On the Imperial capital, nobles whispered in private halls. Families that once lived in comfort now looked at the stars with unease. The humans had become a shadow, a word mothers used to frighten their children. Do your duty, or the humans will come. Lord Vallon read the latest reports in silence. His commanders described humans as relentless, impossible to predict. One message from a fleet admiral shook even him: they do not retreat. They fight until nothing remains, us or them. Vallon closed the report and stared into the distance. For the first time in his long career, he felt doubt. On the battlefield, Captain Mara Ellison led her troops on a captured world. The city lay in ruins, its once proud Imperial banners torn down and burned. Human soldiers walked the streets, weapons ready, searching for survivors. An Imperial officer, captured alive, spat defiance at her feet. You cannot win. The Empire is eternal. You are nothing but savages. Mara knelt down, her eyes cold. Savages? Maybe. But we are the kind that end empires. The prisoner fell silent. Word of such moments spread quickly. Human broadcasts carried messages across occupied systems. They did not beg for allies, nor did they ask for peace. Their words were simple and sharp: we do not fight wars. We finish them. The message struck fear into every Imperial world. On the Resolute, Hayes gathered his officers. The holomap showed their next target, an Imperial fortress world, heavily armed, believed to be impenetrable. This will not be easy, one officer warned. We will lose ships. Hayes did not argue. We will. But if we take this world, the Empire will know we are not just striking. We are advancing. The plan was set. When the human fleet arrived, the battle shook the stars. Imperial guns lit up the void, tearing through the first wave. Human ships burned, their hulls breaking apart, but still they pressed forward. Not one turned back. Inside his command chair, Hayes watched as the Resolute shuddered under fire. All power to forward shields. We push through. The fleet surged closer. Missiles streaked across the black, plasma fire cut through cruisers, and human boarding craft slammed into Imperial stations. Soldiers poured inside, their weapons blazing, their screams echoing through steel corridors. The Imperials expected hesitation, but none came. Humans fought like predators, using every tactic, every trick, every ounce of strength. Within hours, the fortress world fell silent. Its defenses crumbled. Its cities burned. The humans had won again. News of the battle spread like wildfire. In taverns, in barracks, even inside the Senate itself, one question grew louder. Could the Empire be defeated? Lord Vallon addressed his council with a voice heavy as iron. We face something we have never faced before. They do not stop. They do not bow. They do not break. If we continue underestimating them, this empire will not survive. But even as he spoke, human fleets were already preparing their next move. On Earth, factories roared with fire and smoke. Engineers worked night and day, turning raw steel into ships. Civilians volunteered in droves, ready to take the fight across the stars. Every loss fueled them further. Every scar turned into resolve. Captain Mara stood among new recruits, their faces young, their hands trembling as they received their weapons. She spoke only a few words. You will see things you cannot imagine. You will fight enemies who think themselves gods. But remember this, they bleed. And when they bleed, We win. The recruits lifted their weapons and roared. The Empire had thought this was just another war. But it was no longer a war. It was a reckoning. And deep inside, in every corner of the galaxy, the same realization grew like a storm. The humans were not fighting to survive. They were fighting to finish the Empire. The war no longer belonged to the Empire. Every week brought new reports of human victories. Supply lines collapsed. Outer colonies fell silent. Fleets that once commanded fear were now hunted across the stars. The humans were not just winning, they were spreading. On the bridge of the Resolute, Commander Hayes watched as another enemy world burned in the distance. The once glorious Imperial banners lay in ashes. His crew stood silent, staring at the wreckage. They had seen this sight many times, but it never grew old. Resistance was strong, his officer reported. But they broke faster than expected. Hayes nodded, his voice calm. They know what is coming. Fear weakens them before we even strike. The humans had learned something the Empire had never faced. Victory was not only in weapons, but in terror. Every system taken, every fleet destroyed, spread fear into the next. By the time human ships arrived, the battle was already half won. On the Imperial capital, chaos filled the Senate. Nobles shouted, voices cracking with panic. We must crush them now, one cried. Send every fleet. Another shouted back, and leave our core undefended? The humans strike like shadows. We cannot predict them. Lord Valen stood at the center, his face like stone. Enough, he commanded, his voice echoing through the chamber. You argue like frightened children. The humans will not stop. If we do not act as one, we are finished. But even he felt the weight of despair. On Earth, the fires of industry burned brighter than ever. Entire continents worked day and night, building ships, weapons, and soldiers. Factories rose from the ruins of fallen cities, powered by the rage of survival. Humanity had become a machine of war. Captain Mara Ellison walked through one of the new training camps. Thousands of recruits drilled in rows, their faces grim. Many had lost families in the first invasion. Mara looked at them and saw not fear, but hunger, the hunger to strike back. She addressed them with only a few words. You fight not just for Earth. You fight for every world they ever crushed. You fight because when humans are attacked, we do not kneel. We rise. Her voice carried across the camp, and the soldiers roared in answer. The next campaign was unlike any before. Humanity targeted not an outpost, not a fortress, but a world deep within Imperial territory, a world the Empire considered untouchable. Its skies were guarded by massive fleets, its surface armed with endless fortifications. As the human fleet approached, Imperial commanders laughed with arrogance. At last, they said, the humans have overreached. But they underestimated again. The battle that followed shook the heavens. Human ships surged forward, outnumbered but unbroken. Imperial fire tore through their lines, but still they advanced. Boarding craft smashed into enemy cruisers. Explosions lit the void. On the surface below, Mara led the first wave. Imperial soldiers poured fire from towering walls, but the humans climbed, charged, and broke through. Streets became rivers of fire. Buildings collapsed. Yet still the humans pressed on, step by step, refusing to fall back. An Imperial general watched in disbelief as his forces collapsed. They fight like they want to die, he muttered. One of his aides whispered back, trembling, No, my lord. They fight like they want us to die. Within 2 days, the mighty fortress world was silent. Its banners torn down, its defenses shattered. The humans left nothing behind but ash. When news of the fall reached the Imperial capital, the Senate erupted in panic. One senator shouted, If they can take that world, none of us are safe. Another whispered, Perhaps they will come here next. Lord Valen silenced them with a raised hand. The humans are not an enemy. They are a storm. And storms do not negotiate. They consume. He knew then what few dared to admit, the Empire's power was crumbling. Back on the Resolute, Hayes stood with his officers. The fleet had taken heavy losses, but morale burned higher than ever. His voice was steady as he spoke to them. We have proven what they thought impossible. But this is only the beginning. The Empire has ruled for centuries. We will bring it to its knees. Mara, patched into the comms from the occupied world, added, "Let them fear us. Let them whisper our name in the dark. Humanity does not fight wars. We end them." The words echoed across the fleet, into every soldier's heart. And somewhere deep within Imperial space, in halls of power once filled with pride, shadows of fear grew longer. The humans were coming. And nothing could stop them. The galaxy had changed. Once, the Empire's banners flew over every world, their fleets unmatched, their will unchallenged. But now, whispers of human victories spread faster than Imperial news ships. Whole sectors had fallen silent, cut off by human raids. Merchants refused to travel, soldiers deserted, and governors spoke in fear behind closed doors. The humans were coming. On the bridge of the Resolute, Commander Hayes studied a map filled with red Imperial systems. His officers stood in tense silence. "Our scouts report panic in the core," one officer said. "Worlds once loyal are hoarding supplies. Fleets retreat instead of holding ground. Some systems talk of rebellion." Hayes leaned forward, his voice calm but heavy. "Good. Fear is a weapon as sharp as any blade. Let them tear themselves apart while we strike." His eyes settled on the next target, a vital shipyard near the Empire's heart. If it fell, the humans would cut deep into the lifeblood of Imperial war-making. "Prepare the fleet," Hayes ordered. "We move at once." Meanwhile, on the ship's lower decks, soldiers gathered around Mara Ellison. She had become a legend, known across every front line. The troops listened as she spoke, her voice steady but fierce. "They call us demons. They say we cannot be stopped. Let them believe it, because it's true. We don't fight like them. We don't run. We don't bow. We end this war by ending them." The soldiers raised their fists, their shouts echoing through steel corridors. Far away, in the Imperial capital, Lord Valen stood before the Senate once again. The chamber reeked of fear. Senators shouted over one another, demanding protection for their own worlds. "They cannot be allowed to reach us," one cried. "They are savages," another screamed. Valen silenced them with a single word. "Enough." His voice cut through the noise. "You still cling to arrogance. Look around you. Systems rebel. Fleets falter. Our people no longer believe in victory. The humans are not just enemies, they are executioners." The Senate fell silent. Even the proudest nobles could not deny the truth. At the same moment, the human fleet launched its assault on the shipyard. The Empire had fortified it with hundreds of guns, countless fighters, and 3 massive battlecruisers. When the first human ships appeared, the Imperial commander laughed. "Finally, they come to die." But the laughter did not last. The battle exploded like fire across the void. Human ships, smaller but faster, cut through defenses with precision. Suicide strikes crippled cruisers. Boarding pods slammed into hangars, spilling soldiers who fought like wolves among sheep. On the ground below, Mara led her unit through fire and smoke. Imperial soldiers defended the shipyard with desperation, but they had already lost before the battle began. Fear ate at their resolve. Mara's squad tore through barricades. She shouted over the roar of gunfire, "No retreat. No mercy. Push forward." The humans advanced like an unstoppable tide. Within hours, the mighty shipyard lay in ruins, its docks aflame, its command towers shattered. When word reached the capital, panic spread like wildfire. Nobles began fleeing their estates. Civilian ships clogged the skies, desperate to escape deeper into Imperial space. The idea of the Empire as eternal power had broken. Inside the Senate, voices trembled. "They are close," one whispered. "Too close." Another answered, "What if they reach the capital?" Valen's face was grim. "If they reach the capital, there will be nothing left to save." Back aboard the Resolute, Hayes stood over the wreckage of the shipyard. His crew waited for his orders, the silence thick with tension. He finally spoke, each word like steel. "The Empire has bled enough. But not yet enough to fall. We will keep striking, keep burning, until they can no longer stand." Mara, patched in through comms, added her own words. "They thought they were gods. Now they know gods can bleed. Soon they will learn gods can die. The fleet prepared for its next move. The humans were no longer shadows at the edge of the galaxy. They were fire, burning closer and closer to the Empire's heart. And in every dark corner of the capital, in every whispering hall, the same truth spread like a curse. The humans were coming. And this time, the Empire could not stop them. The stars above the Imperial core burned bright and cold, but the people living beneath them no longer felt safe. Entire sectors had fallen. Shipyards lay in ruins. Fleets that once inspired or were reduced to drifting wrecks. The humans had carved a path through the galaxy, and now that path pointed straight to the Empire's heart. On the bridge of the Resolute, Commander Hayes stood in silence. Before him glowed the map of the core systems. A red circle marked the greatest prize of all, the Imperial capital itself. Scouts report panic spreading across the core, his officer said. Nobles are fleeing. Civilian fleets block trade routes. Half the garrisons refused to leave their worlds. Hayes's voice was low, steady. Good. Fear does half our work for us. But he knew the final steps would not be easy. The Empire, though wounded, was still vast. Its capital world was a fortress, guarded by walls of steel and fire. The humans would face the largest fleet the galaxy had ever seen. Hayes turned to his crew. We have come too far to stop. Every battle has brought us here. Every loss has given us the strength to strike. Now we finish what they began. The officers saluted without hesitation. None doubted the path ahead. On Earth, the factories thundered like storms. Entire continents worked without rest, forging the weapons for the final push. Old men and women welded steel. Children carried supplies. Humanity itself had become an army. Captain Mara Ellison stood before a new wave of recruits, tens of thousands who would join the march on the capital. Many bore scars from the first invasion. Some had lost everything. She looked at them, her face hard as iron. The Empire thought they could rule the stars forever, she said. They thought we were weak. But they learned our truth. We don't fight wars. We end them. And we will end this one, together. Her words roared across the training fields. The recruits lifted their weapons high. Far away, inside the Imperial Senate, chaos ruled. The chamber shook with shouts. Some senators begged for peace. Others demanded extermination. But none could agree on a plan. They are monsters, one cried. They are unstoppable, another shouted. Lord Valen rose, his face grim. You fools waste time with words. The humans are already on the march. Do you not see? This is no longer about survival. It is about whether this empire will live another year, or fall in fire. The senators fell into silence. For the first time in centuries, the empire's rulers felt powerless. Outside the chamber, riots shook the capital streets. Citizens screamed in fear. Whispers spread, the humans are coming. Nothing can stop them. Across the stars, the human fleet assembled. Hundreds of ships gathered in formation, battlecruisers, frigates, carriers, even repurposed freighters. It was a patchwork fleet, born of desperation and rage, but it carried the will of an entire species. Hayes stood before his captains, his voice sharp as steel. We strike the capital. Not for revenge. Not for pride. But because if the Empire survives, humanity will never be free. We do not stop. We do not bow. We finish. The fleet roared in answer. Engines lit the darkness. As they advanced, Imperial fleets rushed to intercept them. The void filled with fire. Missiles streaked. Plasma tore through hulls. Human ships exploded, their crews lost in silence. But even as they fell, the rest pressed forward. On one battlefield, Mara led a boarding assault against a massive Imperial dreadnought. Explosions tore through its corridors as human soldiers stormed the ship. Mara shouted over the chaos, "Push forward. No retreat." Imperial troops fought desperately, but the humans cut through them like fire through paper. Within hours, the dreadnought was captured and turned against its former masters. News spread faster than light. Humans had seized an Imperial warship and used it to destroy its own fleet. Panic swept the Empire. On the capital, citizens screamed in the streets. Noble families fled in secret ships. Even the Senate guards whispered among themselves. The idea of defeat was no longer unthinkable, it was certain. Lord Valen stood at his balcony, overlooking the burning city below. His aide whispered, "My lord, what do we do?" Valen's voice was quiet, almost broken. "We wait. And we pray. For the storm has come." Back aboard the Resolute, Hayes received word of the captured dreadnought. His crew cheered, but Hayes did not smile. He looked at the stars, knowing the greatest battle still waited. "Mara," he said through comms, "the capital lies ahead. Everything we have fought for leads to this. Are you ready?" Her voice came back steady, filled with fire. "Always. Let them see what it means when humans fight." The fleet pushed forward, closer and closer to the core. The imperial capital loomed ahead, its defenses vast, its armies waiting. But the humans had come too far to stop now. They were not fighting for victory. They were fighting for the end. And the end was near. The sky above the imperial capital was filled with fire. For centuries, no enemy fleet had ever come this close. The world was the jewel of the empire, a planet of towering spires and endless defenses. But now, its skies trembled under the shadow of the human fleet. Commander Hayes stood on the bridge of the Resolute, watching the capital loom larger on the screen. His officers stood ready, silent, their faces pale but determined. "This is it," Hayes said. "We strike not to wound, but to kill. The empire ends today." Engines roared. Hundreds of human ships surged forward. The final battle had begun. The empire had gathered its might. The largest fleet in history filled the void, war cruisers, dreadnoughts, endless swarms of fighters. They formed a wall of steel around the capital. The humans should have faltered, should have hesitated. But they did not. The first volleys lit the stars. Explosions shook the void. Human ships tore into the imperial wall, weaving through fire, sacrificing themselves to open gaps for the fleet behind them. For every human ship that burned, another surged forward. On the ground, the capital city shook as alarms screamed. Citizens flooded the streets in panic, watching as fire rained from the sky. In the Senate chamber, nobles screamed at one another, demanding escape. Lord Valen stood alone at the great window, staring at the battle above. His aide whispered in terror, "My lord, they will break through." Valen's voice was quiet. "No. They already have." High above, Captain Mara Ellison led the ground assault forces. Dropships tore through the atmosphere, flames licking their hulls. Anti-air guns blazed, but the humans pushed through. Mara's ship slammed onto the surface, and the ramp dropped. "Move!" she shouted, charging into the storm of fire. The streets of the capital turned into chaos. Imperial soldiers lined barricades, firing desperately, but the humans surged forward like a rising flood. Every building, every wall, every tower became a battlefield. Mara fought at the front, her rifle blazing. Her soldiers followed without fear. When one fell, two more rose. The Imperials fought with discipline, but discipline meant nothing against the storm. In the skies above, the Resolute shook under fire. Hayes gripped the rail as alarms blared. "Forward! No retreat," he ordered. The humans pressed deeper, their fleet splitting through the Imperial wall. One captured dreadnought turned its guns against its former allies, blasting cruisers apart. Human fighters dove into swarms, tearing through with reckless fury. On the surface, Mara's forces pushed into the Senate district. Towers that once gleamed with gold now burned black. She raised her weapon and pointed forward. "There. End it." Her soldiers stormed the Senate steps. Imperial guards fired desperately, but one by one they fell. The doors burst open. Humans poured inside. In the great chamber, nobles screamed in terror as the soldiers stormed in. Mara walked among them, her face hard as stone. Lord Valen stood at the center, his cloak torn, his eyes burning with defiance. He did not flee. He did not beg. He simply stared at Mara. "So," Valen said, his voice calm, almost bitter. "This is how it ends. The Empire, broken by savages." Mara raised her rifle but did not fire. Her voice was sharp as steel. "Not savages. Humans. Remember that." Valen closed his eyes, and for the first time, the weight of centuries fell from his shoulders. He whispered, "Then finish it." And they did. Gunfire echoed through the Senate. The last resistance ended. Outside, the capital city burned. Human banners rose where imperial ones had once flown. Citizens watched in silence, some weeping, some kneeling, all knowing the truth. The empire was no more. In orbit, the Resolute drifted among wreckage. Hayes stood in silence, staring at the planet below. His crew cheered, but his face remained grim. "It's done," his officer said. Hayes nodded slowly. "No. It's finished." Across the galaxy, news spread like fire. Worlds once enslaved rose up. Garrisons surrendered. Fleets laid down their arms. The name of the Empire, once spoken with fear, became nothing but ash. And one message spread with it, carried by every survivor, every broadcast, every whisper in the dark. Humans do not fight wars. They finish them. The galaxy would never forget.